So our next presenter actually flew all the way from the East Coast just for you. Actually, I probably leaned on him a little bit too. So our next presenter is all the way from the East Coast, Dr. Daniel Stickler. He's the visionary pioneer behind the human potential medicine movement, a shift away from the disease model to limitless peak performance in all aspects of life. Sound good? A physician to high-performing entrepreneurs wanting to optimize their superhuman capabilities. He's an author, speaker, blogger, physician, and host of the Iron Man Executive Podcast. Please help me give a warm welcome to my good friend and colleague, Dr. Daniel Stickler.
So who is ready to go down the rabbit hole? We're going to talk about some longevity stuff, and this is cool stuff. I'm actually giving this talk this week at MIT, and it's an hour-long talk, so I've got to kind of talk fast, and I tend to talk fast anyway. So I'm going to run through this, but it's going to bring together a lot of what you've heard already that some of the other speakers have spoken about. And I will warn you, I'm a little blunt when it comes to longevity. The reason is because old age has no benefits. There is nothing good about getting old. I hate aging, okay? I am out there to do battle against getting old, because when we look at the downside, there's dementia, loss of independence, mobility, financial, loss of self-worth, increased chronic disease, and impending death. So I am on a crusade to end aging. All right? So our current state, what if we cured all cancer? Pretty good idea, huh? Okay. What if we cured all heart disease? Another good idea, huh? Even all chronic disease. Let's cure it all. This is where all of research dollars go. These three things. What do we gain? If we cured all this, we would gain, on average, 8 to 10 years of life expectancy. That's 8 to 10 years more of being old. I'm not okay with that. So who wants to be immortal? Anybody? A couple of you. Okay, how about this? Who wants youthful longevity? Okay, a little bit more. How about this one? A choice of when to die, so that it's a decision rather than a decision that's made for you. Aubrey de Grey, he is actually a PhD at Oxford. He doesn't look like it. He's a beer-swilling nudist that has a wife that's 20 years older, a girlfriend his age, and a girlfriend 20 years younger. But in 2004, I met Aubrey de Grey, and he sent me down this path of longevity, because prior to that time, I never even thought that this was possible. But he has been brilliant with what he has put together to talk about how we can cure aging. And it is really an amazing path that he has created for this. And it hasn't changed much over these last 11 years or 12 years. We are truly the first self-evolving species that ever existed. We have been doing this for centuries through epigenetics, but now we are getting into a realm where we can truly alter our own evolution, and in dramatic ways. This isn't something that's science fiction anymore. Any of you know who George Church is? George Church said back in December, science may be moving quickly enough that we are a mere 5 years away from being able to reverse aging. Now, George is not some quack. George is one of the top geneticists at Harvard, and his specialty is this area. For him to come out and say 5 years, honestly, I think George is a little bit aggressive on this. I think we're going to start to get into reverse aging within the next 5 years, but truly dramatic age reversals, Benjamin Buttons type stuff, is probably 10 to 15 years away. But this isn't mythology anymore. This isn't something that is a pipe dream. Recognize any of these names? Probably recognize quite a few of them. These are billionaires or multimillionaires. What do they have in common is that they all are investing in reversing aging. Big money. These guys don't gamble on things that they don't think are a pretty good bet. And they're all putting money in, and large portions of their money. So let's look at nature just to give us some examples. There's a jellyfish in nature that actually reverse ages already. There's a thing called negligible senescence, which means cells don't age. There's no aging in them. We have examples of lobsters, turtles, even alligators, that even an alligator that's 100 years old physiologically isn't any different than a 10-year-old. There's the creosote plant, which doesn't age either. So this lack of aging, why do we have it? It's programmed into our DNA. And what we're looking at is ways to change that. I mean, you look at, we have the ability to grow limbs. I mean, the salamander can do it. Planaria can do it. Zebrafish can regrow organs. And you know what? They have the same base genetics that we do. They're just a little bit different in the code. So if we can change the code, we can create this. We have 5 basic genomes that we work with. We have the base code, which is the genetic code, the GTAC type code. But then we have the epigenome too. The epigenome, which we've learned a lot about. Rob talked quite a bit about that. And then we have the mitochondrial DNA, which mitochondrial DNA was something that was taken into the cell. The mitochondria were thought to be foreign organisms that we kind of hijacked into our eukaryotic cells. We also have the microbiome, which about equal numbers of the microbiome to our own cells. And then we have the virome. And this is a new area of research. The virome, actually, there's 10 times more viruses in our body than we have bacteria. So the virome is really hot topic right now. You're going to hear a lot about it over the next couple of years. I'm not going to talk a lot about those last 3, but the first 2, I'm going to mention a little bit of stuff about it. Let's talk about the game changers. What's happening right now that is really making the most change? Well, we mapped the genome. I mean, that is huge. But with that, we're also mapping the proteome, the metabolome, and the transcriptome. So we're learning very quickly how this code works. We're translating the code. This is important because there are millions and billions of genes, and yet we don't know what half of them do. We don't even know about what 20% of them do. But this is what's changing history. This is equivalent to landing a man on the moon right here. It's called CRISPR technology. CRISPR technology is gene editing. We have the ability through CRISPR technology to actually type into a computer what genes we want to remove. It will go in, remove the gene, and we can put in a new gene in living cells. We can change the genome. And this is exact precision cutting. This is surgical gene editing. And it is being done right now. It's been done in animal models. We've actually successfully edited human cells in the lab. We've modified yeast to where they can create biofuels. We've changed the genes in yeast so that they can create biofuels. We've genetically modified crop strains. We have been able to create human diseases in animals by inserting human genes into the animal model in living animals. We've had germline application where we cured muscular dystrophy in mice. They're actually doing human trials on it now. We've also created a synthetic life form. We are gods. We have actually created life, and it lived. They created a synthetic genome, inserted it into a cell. It's called Synthia, S-Y-N-T-H-E-I-A. Craig Venter's company actually developed it. But they put it in, changed the whole genes, genetic code. They created the genetic code, put it into a cell that had the genetics removed, and it lived. And that's how they're doing a lot of this stuff right now to alter organisms to create this stuff. So what about the potentials for age reversal? I mean, how close are we really? In 2010, Harvard actually reverse-aged mice. They took mice that were gray-haired, frail, intellectually diminished, and they altered their genes, and they actually reverse-aged them. their hair turned black again, their muscular mass came back, and their intellectual abilities improved. The problem was they didn't live longer. They were just youthful longer. So we've got a couple genes that we're looking at. As you heard earlier, we've reversed skin cells back to pluripotent stem cells. But another thing we've done is we've hooked the circulation of an old rat and a young rat, and we actually reverse aged the old rat. Unfortunately, we aged the young rat too. So they took this the next step, and they took the serum, spun the serum down, and injected the serum into the old rat from a young rat, and the rat reverse aged. They're actually in human trials in California with this right now, where they're doing it for newly diagnosed Alzheimer's patients. They're taking young humans, taking their serum and injecting it into pre-senile elderly people. And they're getting good results so far. So is this gene editing therapy the answer to aging? Well, the answer is no. I mean, this is a map of the aging genes that they know of right now. It's pretty extensive. I mean, trying to edit this entire thing is probably not going to happen, at least not with what the technology we have now. But what we do know is there's some key steps, and these are steps that you don't have control over. These are steps that science is coming up with. Creating new stem cells from the cell loss, altering nuclear and mitochondrial mutations, so removing mutations from the cells, taking senescent cells. Those are the cells that quit working. We call them zombie cells, but they age us by sitting there not working anymore. And there's a new area of research called senolytics, where they actually go in and they actually induce these cells to actually die, which is what we want them to do. There's the extracellular junk that builds up from metabolism over time, and we're targeting those with vaccines and other targeted removals, plus the intracellular junk that builds up. It's like when our cells metabolize, and as they do that, it's like doing the dishes in the kitchen, and each week you leave one dish that you don't clean, and that one dish builds up and up and up over time. That's metabolism going on in the cell. But that's not going to do it all. We also have this epigenome, which we have control over. And this is what I'm going to talk to you guys about today, is what you can do now to prepare yourself for what's coming. So the genetics is the code of life, but genetics loads the gun, and the epigenome pulls the trigger. That's the key to remember here. So we do have some control over the genetics. Every cell in our body has the exact same code. There's no difference in the code. It's the expression of that code that's different, which we've talked about several times today. So, what's your name?
Kathleen.
Kathleen. Okay, so when somebody says Kathleen, we know who we're talking about, right? What if I say Kathleen or Kathleen? Changes the expression. Okay, that's the difference between genetics, which is your name, Kathleen, and the epigenetic expression, the phenotype. That's what we have control over. So we can self-edit. Now, we talked about how these bees have the exact same code. And what it is there's a substance in the royal jelly that turns off DNMT3, which is a gene inside these cells. And when it does that, it makes a queen bee. The royal jelly does. The butterfly and the caterpillar, they have the exact same genomic code. It just changes the expression. We're actually getting to the point where we can have the ability to change our own appearance. You ever watch Lucy, where she spontaneously changes? It's not going to be that rapid. I mean, but it's theoretically possible. We know it's possible because we can actually edit the genome. They have taken a 4 billion year old code of life and added 2 new base pairs to it and created life from that as well. We have actually created a whole new version of life through genetic editing. Here's the same example of epigenetics. These 2 cars are the exact same model. This is the car you got at 16. You can see the difference in what happens based on what you do with it. So the question is this evolution top-down or bottom-up? So do we work from the molecular code up? These are genetic changes that are mutations. They're permanent, take a long time to happen. Or do we work from top-down, where it's soft changes in the epigenetics, where it results from environmental influences or how we behave in the environment? And the answer is it's both. We've got to work with both of these. So at the Apeiron Center, we work with patients through human potential model, and we have 7 base areas that we work to optimize. We're obviously not out there saying we're going to reverse age anybody at this point, but we work through genetics and epigenetics, and we work through these main areas that are going to have the biggest influence on the person. So sleep. Sleep is one of the most important things. If I can't get sleep fixed in somebody, I am not going to have much success optimizing them. And when I say sleep, I'm talking about 7.5 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night. Now, I was a surgeon. I was a gastric bypass surgeon. I did 3,000 gastric bypass operations. During that time, the 10 years that I operated, I aged my body dramatically. Through residency, through surgical training and all of this, I had checked my telomeres, which is a little marker of the hourglass of how old you are biologically. I was 10 years older than my chronologic age. And it was because I didn't sleep, I had stress, and I ate poorly. Wasn't overweight. But all of that led to changes in my epigenetic expression of things. So you can age the brain just 16 years of 10 years of shift work alone. Sleep deprivation is a direct association with Alzheimer's disease. Just 2 hours of sleep deprivation and you function the same as somebody who's had 2 to 3 beers. If you only sleep 4 hours in a night, you will function legally intoxicated, based on vigilance studies done by the Air Force. The stuff that we work with our clients is we work with getting them to the 7.5 to 8 hours. We make sure that they don't wake up with alarms. That's important. You want to wake up because you wake up spontaneously and you're getting up because you want to get up, not because you have to get up. We black out the rooms, minimize blue light. Those are all important aspects of creating optimized sleeping. What they found is just one night of sleep deprivation altered the clock gene. Clock gene is an important gene when it comes to sleep, but it actually altered the expression of that gene for one night of sleep deprivation. For stress, stress is the other thing that if we don't fix it, we're not going to optimize aging. We're not going to optimize the person, period. It just doesn't work. Stress causes cortisol elevation. It causes shrinkage of the brain, the gray matter. It increases the telomere shortening. That's the thing I was telling you about that's a marker for how old we are biologically. That hourglass will cause us to have increased rates of cancer. Not only are we going to die sooner, but we're more prone to cancers and heart disease, and we have no immune function. So for us, we work with lifestyle modification. We make sure we minimize oxidative stress. We work with technology, so we do psychophysiologic stress profiles. That's basically just testing what your actual stress levels are, how the body responds to stress. It's not a matter of avoiding stress. You can't avoid stress. You're always going to have stress in some way. It's a matter of taking control over the autonomic nervous system. That's what you want to learn to do. Meditation is an awesome way to do that. Exercise is an awesome way to do that. Just breathing, like with the heart math, we use heart math in our practice. It's a great technique to utilize. As far as nutrition is concerned, genomics is the key here. Genomic analysis of your own personal genomic data will tell you or give you a good idea of what kind of diet you should be on. We look at 64 different genes when we come up with somebody's dietary plan. I did weight loss on top of being a weight loss surgeon. I had 2 dietitians, 2 exercise physiologists, 2 health psychologists in my private practice that worked with weight loss, and we were not successful. I walked away from it all because I didn't believe in it anymore. I said there is no perfect human diet. It doesn't exist. What I found was it's true. Genomics tells us what the perfect diet is for you. It could be a paleo diet. It could be a vegetarian-style diet. It could be a Mediterranean-style diet. Everybody responds differently to different nutrients. What you have to do is figure out what your body's going to respond best to. And you can do it through trial and error over the years, but genomics gives us a shortcut. It's an awesome way to look at it. We can look at supplementation and find out what you're prone to deficiencies in, supplement the deficiencies. I mean, genomics is amazing precision medicine now. Also, play in the dirt. We are too sterile. Okay, we have ruined ourselves by becoming so sterile. We've got to use hand sanitizers. We've got to wash our hands all day long. We've got to take a shower every day. Okay, that's not natural. Get out and walk barefoot on the dirt. Roll in the mud. You got to play. You got to get those germs in you. I mean, that's what makes us us. That's why all these food allergies are present now. It's not the immunizations. It's because we've sterilized ourselves. Hormones are another big thing. You lose hormones as a natural part of aging. It's not a healthy part of aging. When are we the healthiest? When our hormones are peaking, when we have the estrogen and the progesterone and the testosterone that's raging. That's when we feel alive. That's when the bodies respond best. That's when the bodies are healthiest. So allowing hormones to deteriorate because it's unnatural, because it's a natural part of aging, I don't believe in that. Heart disease is a natural part of aging, but we don't object to somebody having a bypass or a stent, unless you're me. I don't like people having that. But hormones are relegated to this, oh, that's cheating, or that's just not healthy. It's not true. Hormones are absolutely essential for vitality and that zest of life that keeps us alive. Environment. We play in an environment full of carcinogens with epigenetic modifiers, through antibiotics and pesticides and herbicides. We are ruining an entire area of one of our genomes, which is the microbiome. And now we're starting to take antivirals, and I can't imagine what that's going to create with us. So there is a good role for antibiotics in these things, but most of the time not. You need to avoid them as much as possible unless you absolutely have to do it. So minimize these exposures to PBCs and herbicides, pesticides. Keep it clean, keep it in the environment. Movement. We have to teach people how to move. Have you ever watched kids nowadays walking? You go to the mall and these people are just, it's like they're foreigners in their body. They don't know how to move their body. We actually give them instructions on how to move. Hold the shoulders back. Just holding the shoulders back alone will change their confidence level dramatically. But on top of that, it actually creates epigenetic changes. You can raise your testosterone level just by walking around like this for 5 minutes. We call it the victory pose. Exercise. 6 months of an exercise program has been shown to alter 7,000 gene expressions in the body. 7,000. We only know of 22,000 genes that are coding. And 7,000 of them change with exercise? You think that's important? Yeah, it's a big deal. The brain. Brain is another area that is just open territory right now. We have the ability to create smarter, better concentration, better focus, and yet we ignore a lot of that because it's not natural. We have medical technology and medical advances that are wonderful for this stuff. I mean, there's brain nootropics like Provigil and modafinil, which can actually help you to be smarter. The military uses it. They give it to pilots. Why do they give it to pilots? Because it makes their decision-making better, makes their level of alertness better. And there's not much downsides to it. They give it to recon teams that go out because they want them to stay up all day. Works great. So why don't we take advantage of it in practice? Because it's cheating. I'm all about human enhancement. I'm not afraid of death, but I want to live in this incarnation and take it to its fullest extent. I want to pimp this ride, and I want to see where it takes me, okay? I'm not afraid of death. I think there's a pretty awesome thing waiting beyond that. But why not take advantage of the things we've been given to enhance our own selves? There's nothing wrong with that. And if you don't agree with it, that's fine too. Don't rain on my parade. So as far as the brain's concerned, we work with biofeedback. Biofeedback is an excellent way to retrain the brain. We can do neurofeedback. We can actually take somebody's brainwave patterns and find some pattern that's messing with them that's not optimal and change that pattern through neurofeedback training. We put the big, that big headset on with all the little wires coming off of it. We measure brainwave patterns and we look and see what's potentially interfering with their ability to optimize, and we can help to train out or train in new patterns. The brain is very plastic. It means it changes all the way through old age. It's not like it quits changing throughout this time. We can actually change it. Practice positivity. We know that people that are positive live longer. Grumpy people die. They really do. And it's epigenetic changes that creates that. We call them we call them fun sponges and Eeyores. We saw the Eeyore picture, but we have Eeyores and Tiggers. I'm a Tigger. Okay, so let's talk about some things that you can do right now as far as supplementation. Rapamycin, you don't want to take this. Rapamycin has actually been shown to increase longevity, but it's a kidney transplant drug, and it's got some nasty side effects to it. SERT activation, resveratrol. There is some mild evidence of resveratrol working. Honestly, I don't think it's strong enough to justify taking it, but there's no harm in taking it. Metformin. Anybody heard of metformin? Anybody taking it? You know, it's one of the most potent anti-aging drugs on the market. You know, I take it because it does work. There's a study right now going on. It's the first drug ever approved by the FDA to study aging. It was approved in December of last year. It's called the TAME study. You could look it up, TAME, targeting aging with metformin. The way they found out about this is they took newly diagnosed diabetics and put them on metformin. And as a control group, they just said, oh, let's just take healthy age-matched controls. The diabetics on the metformin outlived and had less disease than the age-matched controls. They said, what's up with this? We already knew it worked in the lab, but it's pretty dramatic. It activates a substance in the cell called AMPK, and it works really well. Telomerase activators. How do we increase the length of our telomeres? That's important for me. That's something I want to do. I've taken TA65, $600 a month. Not worth it. Didn't work. Product B. Product B is another telomere activator. No research at all behind it. So I wouldn't recommend that. NAD boosters are really big. I just interviewed David Sinclair, who's a geneticist at Harvard too, and he has developed this stuff called nicotinamide mononucleotide, which is $43,000 a day, and it works. He's trying to get funding to get a study to get the cost down a little bit. Now, there is a substance that I can say will probably work. It's not real strong evidence, but it was developed by researchers at MIT. It's called Elysium basis. But it's nicotinamide riboside is the name of it. There's another brand of it called Niagen. Niagen works real well, but it increases NAD levels in the cell. And that is something that can boost longevity. Nitric oxide boosters. Eat a lot of beets, kale. That's the way to boost nitric oxide. You can take some supplements. There's powdered beetroot that you can take too. Oxidative stress reduction. Bacopa Maneri. If you're going to take one supplement, take Bacopa Maneri. It is the favorite supplement of mine. Bacopa Maneri, 300 milligrams a day, reduces oxidative stress dramatically. Plus, it changes the brain. It causes dendrites to grow, so your learning and everything goes through the roof. It works really well in combination with ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a real stress reducer. Good scientific evidence on both of those. Blood sugar control, I take a supplement called benfotiamine. It's a form of activated thiamine, and it works really well for kind of blocking the formation of AGEs, which is a substance that causes aging in the cells. Mitochondrial biogenesis, there's evidence that alpha lipoic acid works really well for that. There's also evidence that low-dose Motrin works for aging. Yeah, low-dose Motrin. And it has some pretty good scientific proof behind it as well. The other thing is live epic. This is something we have as our credo. You don't seek happiness. You either choose to be happy or you don't. And it's much better to choose to be happy, I can tell you. And number two, don't take responsibility for somebody else's happiness. That is a big, big message that we give to our clients. They try to think that everything that they have to do is to help somebody else be happy. And it's their choice. It's not up to you to decide whether they're going to be happy or not. And just because you do something isn't going to make them happy. It is a choice. So we have people that we say, you know, quit your job because you don't love it. And people have done it. I've told people to leave their spouses. In my medical practice, I said, you know what, you're trying to do all this stuff, but the one thing that you need to do is you need to get out of the relationship. They get out, and suddenly things change. You have got to live your authentic self. You're responsible for you. Can't be responsible for someone else. You can help them along the way, but you don't want to be responsible. And the other thing I say is live your life so that at the end, and you're writing a novel, it's an epic. It's a page turner. You know, I look at what I've done. I've ridden elephants in Thailand. I have sat on a gondola in Venice. I have hiked the Inca Trail and arrived in Machu Picchu with the sunrise. Those are things that you can talk about and just think about and just be amazed. And you don't have to go to these places. I mean, just like Dr. Gala did, walking up on the top of the mountain early in the morning. Things that just really excite you and exhilarate you and say, wow, that took me out of my comfort zone, but it was definitely worth it. This was a sign I saw. I was giving a talk in Austin, and this was on the sign on the side of a bridge, and I had to take it and add it to my talk when I was down there, so I use it in most of my talks now. But it really is. You have to live a great story. It's what makes life fun. You guys recognize this guy? It's Dr. Jeff Life. He's my... He's a partner in my medical practice as of May 1st. Jeff's 77 years old, but he is the picture of vitality. Jeff didn't always look like this. I mean, when he was 55, he had this big old pot belly, and he was just a mess, full of chronic disease. Now he's 77 years old, so it's never too late to turn things around for sure. And if you guys have any interest in listening to some of my interviews, I've interviewed Aubrey de Grey and David Sinclair and bunch of these guys that are big into the age reversal stuff and optimizing the human being. It's the Iron Man Executive. It's available on iTunes. So are we going to do some questions? Okay, so does anybody have any questions?
I wanted to know if metformin is a prescription item.
It is a prescription. It's about $10 a month. It's cheap. You can get a similar result with some herbals. Gynostema is a nice herbal, but berberine also works really well for creating a similar effect. Mm-hmm.
Great. Question in the back there?
In the sleep part, you didn't mention white noise. Is that a yay or a nay?
You're talking about background noise?
Oh, for sleep. You're talking about sleep optimization?
Right.
You know, I try to keep it quiet. Cold, quiet, and dark. I mean, those are the keys for really optimal sleep. I mean, white noise, you can actually activate areas of the brain, induce beta. We call the beta head. It's when the brainwave patterns start to pick up again. So really quiet, cold, and dark. That's the key. They have these new pads now that you can actually cool the mattress so you can get under the covers. Like a lot of people like to get under the covers even though they get hot. But you can put these cooling pads underneath so you stay cool underneath, but you can get under the covers. And they work really well for inducing sleep.
Great. We have time for two more. So I see one over there, and then we'll go over there.
You stated a lot of different things to do. So my question is, you're at the beginning. Give me the one thing you would start with.
Sleep. Truly.
See the shoulders drop down?
Yeah.
Now that was your epigenetics. Now you're going to start decoding yourself. And
That's not quite the answer I was looking for.
But it truly is. I mean, sleep by far. I've been working with clients for 20 years on this stuff. If I can't get them to get quality sleep, their chances of progressing in optimization is really low.
Well, and I would echo that in terms of, like you ever heard of the Huffington Post or Ariana Huffington? I was at an event and we actually shared the stage together at an event, and her whole crusade right now is sleep. because she had well, I'd say almost a near fatal accident because she was sleep deprived. So you think of someone like Ariana Huffington that has such a momentum behind her and such a force, and she is on this crusade right now to help people sleep because of the research behind that. I'd echo that for myself. I'd echo everything Dr. Stickler's saying, and I would echo it for you. And just the way that you responded, I'd even say to even look at that and say and think, because the way you responded, that's probably the thing that, it's kind of like the thing that you want to do the least is probably what you need to do the most. Mm-hmm. And it really is. It's like when you get on the airplane and they talk about putting on your oxygen mask first. Because if you don't put on your oxygen mask first, if you're not taking care of yourself with your sleep, all these things, then you can't take care of everything else that you need. Because just like you were saying, so if you lose how much sleep, what's the intoxication level?
2 hours is 2 to 3 beers. 4 hours is legally intoxicated as far as your vigilance level.
So if you have that kind of deprivation, essentially, then think about how is that affecting you on all other functions. You're not even thinking appropriately. I read a study that talks, I think it's about 60 to 70%, probably even more than that, 60 to 70% of arguments in a relationship, do you think they happen first thing in the morning or in the afternoon and evening? In the evening. We know that because people, as their energy levels go down, when you're in a state of high energy, then you're unstoppable. But if your energy's down, you can get knocked over. And when I say knocked over, that means by your own brain, or it means by anything else that comes along. So yeah, I would echo that, and I'd say even as I saw you kind of get deflated, probably something to look at.
Well, the problem is too that we get this perception. Our brain perceives that we can tolerate less sleep, that we can adjust to tolerating less sleep. But the reality is, our brain learns to tolerate lower levels of performance.
How did he get changed at an old age, being able to do that?
You mean mature age? At a mature age. We don't get old here, we mature like a fine wine.
Jeff has done everything that I talked about. That's what his focus is. He gets good sleep, he keeps his stress level low, he eats a healthy diet, he exercises regularly, he does things that are fun, he stays happy. He's one of the happiest guys you'll ever meet. But that's really the key to it.
Wonderful. Okay. So, wonderful. Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Doc.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it.